Lastly, we're going to talk about subsurface mining or shaft mining. So subsurface mining means below the surface. And so the entry point is not just the surface and you dig down. The entry point is almost, again, like kind of a straw. And then you go and then you build like little tunnels essentially below the ground. And the idea is the top just kind of stays intact for the most part. And then you access the resource in the ground, and then you just can kind of bring it back up through like a shaft or through this like tunnels and things like that. So that is subsurface mining. There are different types. So again, it's often used to remove coal or various metal ores that are too deep to be extracted by subsurface mining. They dig the vertical shaft, they have these chambers underground, and then they transport the ore up to the surface. There's different types. You don't really need to know about these different types, but there's room and pillar mining, longwall mining, or like another in situ where they use like different solutions. Room and pillar, they leave about half or so of the material as pillars, literally there to hold up the ceiling above them. And they dig, and that's what this grid pattern is showing as they kind of dig around, and they leave about half of it in place. Again, that's just, you don't need to know all about room and pillar mining, but just realize that's a name, that's a type of subsurface mining. So that means subsurface mining. Longwall mining is they're digging out, and then they're basically they dig it out, and then as they dig it out, they know it's good. The top's going to kind of cave in a little bit above them, and they just plan for that to happen. And again, that is another type of subsurface mining. And solution mining or in situ mining, they use wells and they inject fluids into the ground, and then they pump up. It kind of dissolves the desired ore, and then they can pump it up to the surface. Again, concerns potentially from groundwater contamination. It's often believed to be deeper than where than the groundwater, so maybe is an issue, but again, that can be very controversial. So that is another type of subsurface mining. So those are three examples. Again, you don't have to really know, just kind of be familiar that those mean subsurface mining. One issue associated with subsurface mining is what's called subsidence, and I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. It's basically like the surface. Again, I've dug something out deep in the ground here, and so then it could fall in, it could cave in slowly, or it could just be boom, and it kind of like a cave in at the surface. So this is an image of a building that is cracked because basically there was like a subsurface mine below it. If you go into the mountains in Montana and a lot of places, there's a lot of excuse me, there's lots of old abandoned mines, and those old abandoned mines, they there can be cave-ins and stuff. And so sometimes people will go exploring in those mines, and it's really dangerous because again, they could be cave-ins and you could get trapped in there. So subsidence is like kind of this cave-in at the surface. Subsurface mining advantages: only way to access some resources, disturbs a lot less land than surface mining, usually produce less waste material, and you end up often with less topsoil erosion because I'm not stripping away everything on the surface. Biggest disadvantage: way more dangerous. You can have the collapse of the roofs and the walls, and miners, you'll hear things about miners getting trapped in mines. That is subsurface mining. There can be explosions. Again, I'm digging out coal and things, so it's things that are flammable, dust, and there can be explosions. You'll hear about black lung disease or lung cancer in miners, very common because they're in small confined areas, lots of dust, ending up with lung cancer. You can leave the resource in the ground with room and pillar mining, that cave in, that subsidence. And again, you also can have acid mine drainage, definitely from subsurface mining. So subsurface mining, just like subsurface mining and surface mining, both have this acid mine drainage. And so how could I clean up acid mine drainage? I could do things like I could neutralize the pH. I could try to trap that area, or I could try to clean up the area. Neutralize the pH, or I could try to trap that water before it gets to the surface and contaminates groundwater supplies. Lastly, with this, why will miners work in mines if they are so dangerous? Again, it goes back to money. Being a miner, you make good money. You make a good living. So typically, miners will want to do this because they are making it's good. It's a good job. It's good economically. Last thing is about solutions. Our last learning target was solutions. For subsurface mining, now you want to seal it off so it's not these abandoned mines that can later collapse in. You want to make sure they're safe and people don't go into them. Try to seal things off so you maybe get less acid mine drainage. For surface mining, there's now a lot where you're going to actually go back and reclaim the area you mined out. So you have to kind of fill that back in, that open pit, you fill it in potentially, and then put topsoil and like reclaim it. Maybe you make a golf course or you plant grass and trees on it or something like that. Restore it to natural area or as natural area as you can get. Again, you've caused massive habitat loss. So that topsoil that develops slowly over time and those habitats, you're just kind of planting plants on it or a golf course, so it's not the same, but you're reclaiming it as best as possible. Again, you're trying to also control for acid mine drainage and things like that. So those are some solutions to issues associated with mining. It's not perfect. Again, a bigger solution would be to reduce our demand for these materials and recycle metals. Don't use those metals. Don't demand those metals in the first place. If we recycle the metals, we would need to mine less. So those would be some solutions to reduce the impacts of mining and the environmental impacts from mining. I hope that was helpful in your understanding of subsurface mining and ways to deal with the impacts.